Chapter 293. The even more terrifying Xiao Hongchen. Zhang Zan's eyes lit up, and he tilted his head as he muttered under his breath. This fellow from the Tang Sect is not bad indeed. He's combined a luring net and a shock bomb. This can control, repel, and carries offensive effects all at the same time. This is a very innovative soul tool indeed, and it is meant to buy him enough time for something. If his opponent's reaction is too slow, this soul tool can directly take them down. Hikato immediately made his move at the same time that he fired his luring net and shock bomb. He moved in the standard way that soul engineers typically did, and he followed the stage's edge and rapidly shifted along as he lifted a heavy cannon on his shoulder. Large amounts of rupturing shells burst out and blasted towards his opponent, and he activated the flying type soul tool on his back at the same time, soaring into the sky as he fired off his rupturing shells. The shock bomb repelled Xiaoping, and he displayed his own strength as a wave of rupturing bombs followed immediately after. Soul thrusters shone on his palms, feet, thighs, and behind his back as soul thrusters of many different sizes complemented the flying type soul tool on his back and brought his body diagonally into the sky. Xiaoping surged into the air with incredible speed and raced towards Hikato as he evaded those rupturing shells. He pointed the spear in his hands forward, and blinding white light erupted from the spear's edge tip right towards Hikato. Hikato had been observing his opponent this entire time. The soul thrusters on Xiaoping's body were all hidden within and attached to that armor of his, which covered the most important parts of his body. Xiaoping wasn't wearing full body armor, but a lighter and more flexible style. He displayed how advantageous this agility was as he soared through the air, and although soul thrusters allowed him to make some movements that seemed to defy natural laws, Hikato shifted 3 feet horizontally while he was still in the air, and evaded the light beam just like that. The wings behind his back turned down and allowed him to hover in midair. Hikato switched out the weapon on his shoulder, and a strangely shaped cannon appeared. The back of this cannon was conical, but it was rectangular at the front when he placed it on his shoulder, and there were 18 cannon mouths split into 3 rows. Dense and intense bluish-purple light began to shine out from it. In the next moment, lightning that seemed to blanket the entire world poured towards Xiaoping. What soul tool is that? Even Zhang Zan was taken aback. He had immersed himself in soul tools for almost 100 years, but even he couldn't recognize Hikato's soul tool with all the experience that he had. This meant that Hikato's soul tool was self-invented. Every lightning streak that this strange cannon fired was as thick as an arm. The most frightening part was that these lightning streaks detonated once they were fired, and each streak split into even more lightning streaks. 18 streaks transformed into a web of lightning bolts in an instant and barreled towards his opponent, who was still charging towards him. This web had a large surface area, and there was no way Xiaoping could dodge this no matter how agile and nimble he was. Hikato had an extremely calm look on his face, and there was some straightforwardness amid all that composure that had always been there. However, there was nothing straightforward about the soul tool in his hands. Xiaoping was equally astonished by this soul tool that he had never heard of nor seen before. He kept his spear pointed forwards, and his armor glowed all over as ray after ray of light condensed to form a white barrier that protected his body within. Hikato's pupils contracted. That was a class 7 protective soul barrier. Xiaoping only had 5 soul rings, and it was evident that he wasn't strong enough to use something as powerful as a class 7 protective soul barrier. The only possibility was that this soul tool had special characteristics that allowed him to operate it. This soul tool probably made use of resonance technology and merged many soul barriers at the same time, which allowed it to erupt with such formidable power. It was the only way Xiaoping could produce defensive capabilities that matched a class 7 protective soul barrier, as class 7 was the rank of a soul sage. Naturally, this was also because Xiaoping was a close combat soul engineer. If Xiaoping had been a traditional soul engineer like Hikato, he wouldn't use this resonance soul barrier even if he had it, as it would consume far too much soul power. Attaching something like this to himself meant it would be very difficult to use other soul tools, because resonance technology had to be in tandem with the soul power undulations at every spot on his body. There was no way to switch out to other soul tools. Xiaoping released his class 7 soul barrier and immediately shot forward like an arrow. He didn't intend to avoid those lightning streaks anymore, charging straight for Hikato. Xiaoping's class 7 soul barrier had impressive defensive capabilities. Indeed, the soul barrier repelled every single lightning streak, and Xiaoping didn't slow down at all. He was about to arrive before Hikato at any moment. Hikato could already see the murderousness and sinisterly evil expression in Xiaoping's eyes. Zhang Zan had already risen into the air from ground, and he prepared himself to end this battle as soon as was needed. Boom. A vigorous explosion erupted between Hikato and Xiaoping. Xiaoping still had his class 7 soul barrier up, but his entire body was sent hurtling through the air like a bullet. His class 7 soul barrier broke apart from the impact, and if he hadn't unleashed his invincible barrier, the crackling lightning streaks in the sky would have torn him to pieces. Hikato was still hovering in midair, as if he hadn't moved at all. A cannon barrel with a mouth about the size of a bowl closed gradually near his chest, still flickering with light. Hikato switched out the soul cannon on his shoulder once more, and a golden red cannon that was about as thick as an arm and about 3 meters long appeared on his shoulder. The cannon sight swung into place before his eyes, and he locked onto Xiaoping in the distance. There was a large burning cigar sticking out from the corner of his mouth, releasing wafts of green smoke. The cigar and the green smoke complemented his daddy look, and he appeared as valiant and fearsome as could be. Xiao Hongchen leapt off his chair in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy's camp once this long golden red cannon appeared. A class 7 Stinger cannon. How can you have a class 7 Stinger cannon? Stinger cannons were considered the most destructive single-target soul cannons. More accurately put, a Stinger cannon should be considered a soul ray, and it was only called a cannon because it was just too forceful. Not many soul engineers used Stinger cannons because they required manual aim and consumed a lot of soul power. However, Stinger cannons had a very long range, and were typically used to assault fortified positions. A Stinger cannon's greatest weakness was that it couldn't lock onto its target, and it couldn't track its target. However, its power was incredibly frightening. Xiaoping wouldn't be able to take a hit from this Stinger cannon even if he had his invincible barrier activated. The best solution against a Stinger cannon was to dodge its attack, exploiting the weakness that it couldn't lock onto a target. But Xiaoping was hurtling through the air after Hikato had tossed him away with some unknown method, slamming against the competition stage's protective barrier and bouncing back. Xiaoping's invincible barrier could protect him, but it couldn't help him absorb the impact. Could he react in time to dodge the Stinger cannon's attack? Nobody knew the answer to that question. Therefore, Zhang Zan grew hesitant. He knew that stopping Hikato at this moment would mean that he was declaring Hikato victorious. However, Xiaoping would have another chance to get back in the game if he dodged this attack. Zhang Zan no longer believed that Xiaoping had the fighting strength to defeat Hikato, who had already displayed a class 7 soul engineer's prowess. However, the Sun Moon Empire's team was already down 2-1. How could he let them lose another point just like that? Hikato naturally didn't care what the judge was thinking about. He aimed, and he fired. It was that simple for him. More than half of the cigar in Hikato's mouth disappeared when he fired his Stinger cannon, as smoke and ash billowed in all directions. A golden red beam as thick as a finger cut across the air straight towards Xiaoping. This enormous pressure heralded mortal danger to Xiaoping. Even though he was still dizzy and concussed from the collision, goosebumps began to break out all over his body, and his hair stood on edge from the sudden pressure, allowing him to recover within the blink of an eye. Xiaoping didn't have time to look up to see what was happening, and neither did he have the time to make accurate judgments. He immediately activated his soul thrusters and attempted to fly out diagonally in an attempt to dodge this attack. However, he felt an intense numbness course over this body at this moment. Xiaoping looked down subconsciously and saw a tiny needle protruding from his chest, a needle that shone with bluish purple light. The overwhelming numbness was coming from this needle. Did he stick that into me before I opened my invincible barrier when my class 7 soul barrier was blasted away? But that should be considered a stationary soul tool even though it's a needle. This was Xiaoping's final thought before he watched the golden red beam swallow that slender needle. The tiny needle was destroyed, and he himself could clearly feel that he had lost something as well. A hole no bigger than a thumb appeared in Xiaoping's invincible barrier and his heart at the same time. His eyes grew slack and were filled with incredulity. Not in his wildest dreams did he expect to die this way. A dash of cold light flickered across Hikato's eyes, but he quickly returned to his simple and honest look as he withdrew the cannon in his hands and gradually descended from the sky. Zhang Zan caught Xiaoping as fast as he could when the ladder dropped down from the sky. However, Zhang Zan quickly discovered that Xiaoping couldn't be saved. His heart had been shot straight through. How could anybody save him? Xiao Ping's eyes were full of exasperation. There was nothing else he could say, and he puked out a whole lot of blood before he finally passed into the void. 2 combat deaths from 3 battles. The audience erupted into furor when Zhang Zan announced Xiao Ping's death. They were inside the Sun Moon Empire, and not inside the Dalu Empire like last season. The Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy's team was representing the Sun Moon Empire in this competition, and 3 people had perished, one after another, in this round. How could the citizens not be upset? Huo Yuao's eyes betrayed a faint look of surprise despite his ice-cold expression beneath the stage, and he glanced at Hikaru on stage. Hikaru turned around at this moment, and he nodded calmly at Huo Yuao before he removed the cigar in his mouth and gave him a smile that seemed to contain a far deeper meaning. Huo Yuao couldn't help but reminisce on the scene when Hikaru had confided in him back then. Second senior brother, Zhang Zan's expression was a little black. He was a Class 9 Soul Engineer, but he had failed to prevent another death in a match that he had personally refereed, so there was no way he didn't feel bad right now. However, he had been faced with a tough choice just now, and the outcome proved that he made the wrong one. Xiao Hongchen jumped onto the competition stage with a dark look on his face. I'm up for the next round. On the other side, Huo Yuao also spoke up from the Tang Sect's waiting area. The Tang Sect will abandon the remaining single elimination rounds. We choose to enter the group battle directly. Both Hikaru and Xiao Hongchen were taken aback for a moment, and Xiao Hongchen's expression grew even gloomier than before. Hikaru frowned for a moment before he grabbed a milk bottle and leapt off the competition stage to show that he was absolutely supportive of Huo Yuao's decision. The Tang Sect had already won 3 matches. There were 7 matches of the single elimination round, and the Sun Moon Empire couldn't possibly overtake the Tang Sect by more than 5 points, even if they won the remaining matches. The final result had to be determined through the group battle. However, the Sun Moon Empire had already lost 2 in combat, and Huo Yuao had slain another. 3 of the original 7 were dead. Substitutes weren't allowed in this 7-man round, and this meant that the Sun Moon Empire would be at a great disadvantage in the subsequent group battle. The Tang Sect had an absolute advantage if they chose to go straight into the group battle, as they were 7 against 4. Zhang Zan stared deeply into Huo Yuao's eyes before he lowered his voice and declared, "The single elimination round is over. Both parties can take some time to rest up, and we will commence the group battle after the break. The Tang Sect has accumulated 3 points, and the Sun Moon Empire has 7. On the rostrum, Shu Tianran's face became darker and darker, and Jing Hongchen's eyebrows were also tightly knit together. The Tang Sect's prowess was far stronger than he had imagined. The first 2 participants were both 6-ring Soul Emperors, and Hikaru had just displayed a Class 7 Soul Engineer strength. It was correct to say that the 3 members from the Sun Moon Empire were completely suppressed by their opponents, rather than they didn't manage to unleash their full capabilities. The thing that worried and shocked Jing Hongchen the most was how powerful Huo Yuao's eruption was. Jing Hongchen was a titled Douluo, and even he felt a little dizzy and lost the moment that purplish golden light appeared. He had found himself unable to lock onto and determine the peculiar attack that Huo Yuao had unleashed. What kind of power was that? Even an invincible barrier couldn't stop it. Furthermore, the Tang Sect was in the right during that incident. The group battle was about to commence. Even though the Sun Moon Empire's reserve team members weren't that much weaker than their main team members, there was a rift. Furthermore, his granddaughter and his grandson were also part of this tournament. It was absolutely impossible for Jing Hongchen not to be worried or anxious. Shu Tianran asked plainly, "Can they win the group battle?" He placed a lot of emphasis on this year's tournament. Jing Hongchen took a deep breath and said, "I have faith in those kids. However, I implore that you give me permission to keep those guys from the Tang Sect here forever after the tournament. They will grow up to become real problems in the future if they possess such prowess at such a young age." Shu Tianran glanced at him and said, "Either you make them submit, or you make them disappear." Zhu Zi was still sitting beside Shu Tianran, and her eyes shifted a little in response. Hikaru sat down beside Huo Yuao, but his expression was no different from before. Huo Yuao stared at him and whispered, "Are you all right, second senior brother?" Hikaru shook his head and said, "I'm good. I'm good." He raised his head as he spoke, and he gazed at the rostrum in the distance with a calm look in his eyes. There at the seat that was high above everyone else, the arena and the audience had settled down, and several Earth-type Soul Masters hurried around as they attempted to repair the competition stage. The group battle was about to start, and even though the competition stage was 100 meters in diameter and didn't look small at all, it couldn't be considered that spacious if it was to host 14 people at once. The least that the organizers could do was to repair the stage's surface. "Donga, you will remain by my side later, and you're responsible for protecting me," Huo Yuao said plainly. Wang Donga was momentarily stunned. Her eyes darted around at the others, but she lowered her head in the end. She forced herself not to rebuff Huo Yuao and ask if that was being unfair to the others. Huo Yuao looked at his other compatriots. "Please follow my guidance from my spiritual detection during the group battle after this. We have to win this round, and we can't afford to sustain any losses or injuries at all." Everyone nodded in agreement. Huo Yuao closed his eyes once more, but his right hand was still holding onto Wang Donga's left hand. Everyone closed their eyes one after another, and they took this opportunity to mentally prepare themselves so that they could maintain their peak condition and go into battle in their best state. The subsequent round was a showdown of life and death to them, and a single misstep could lead to injury, and perhaps even death. Fortunately, that powerful Soul Engineer had taken over as judge, so this round would be a lot safer than otherwise. There were commotions all around the arena. The citizens and aristocratic families alike were all discussing things amongst themselves. Those who were more familiar with the competition rules originally expected that the tournament would be a little calmer after the initial elimination phase ended, and the tournament progressed into the round robins. After all, the round robin stage didn't directly determine the final winner and loser. The point accumulation was related to whether the teams would get to progress into the next round, but one loss didn't mean that a team would be eliminated right away. Who would have thought that the round robin stage that they didn't expect to be too intense was so epic? And this was only the first round. Nobody had ever heard of the Tang Sect before, and they were up against their own country's Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. The Tang Sect ended up killing 3 of their own in a row. What exactly was going on? The audience's hearts were with the Sun Moon Empire's team, but the disgraceful attack against Wang Donga earlier made the audience cheer conspicuously quieter than before. That was such a low blow, and was simply too disgraceful. It was also the reason why most of the audience didn't feel bad or pity Zhou Xinghao after his head exploded from Huo Yuao's formidable strike. Nobody expected that the Tang Sect would have a landslide victory like that. Those who liked to gamble couldn't help but feel fortunate that their country prohibited gambling. Otherwise, they would probably have lost everything they had in this round. It was the truth. If the Tang Sect eventually defeated the Sun Moon Empire's team, it would be the greatest upset since the start of this tournament. Everyone couldn't help but feel a thread of hope for the group battle that was about to commence. They naturally hoped that the Sun Moon Empire would emerge victorious, but the 3 consecutive losses before this shook their confidence and their faith. The Tang Sect's first 2 participants were actually 2 6-ring Soul Emperors. For most citizens, Soul Emperors were already considered unassailable and highly respectable people that nobody could reach. The competition stage's flooring was swiftly repaired. There was no time to reinstall the metal boards, but at least that didn't affect the tournament. "Step on stage, everyone," Zhang Zan announced with a deep voice. Wang Donga was the first to stand up, walking behind Huo Yuao as she slowly pushed his wheelchair forward. The others didn't overtake them and follow behind, more than enough to prove Huo Yuao's status as team leader. On the other side, the Sun Moon Empire's 4 remaining members got to their feet and jumped on stage one after another. Xiao Hongchen was still wearing that solemn and insidious look, and he walked in front of everyone else as he glared at Huo Yuao in the distance. Xiao Hongchen's fists were tightly clenched, as if he were about to swallow him up. This round was 7 against 4, and those that were truly familiar with the Tang Sect's team members understood that the Tang Sect practically had an absolute advantage over their opponents. Unless some special circumstances cropped up, it was almost impossible for the Sun Moon Empire to turn the tables. This was also the benefit of killing opponents in the single elimination matches, as it wasn't difficult to see how much pressure the team would have to sustain with 3 fewer people. Something utterly unexpected happened right at that moment. Xiao Hongchen suddenly raised his hand and said, "Judge, we're admitting defeat for the group battle." Zhang Zan was momentarily stunned, and he asked again to be sure. "Are you saying that the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy is admitting defeat in the group battle, which also means that you guys have lost this whole round?" "Yes." Xiao Hongchen was gritting his teeth as he nodded heavily. Huo Yuao's eyes sparkled as he sat in his wheelchair. His eyes closed into a squint as he stared back at Xiao Hongchen, and his right hand unwittingly gripped his wheelchair's armrest tightly. Zhang Zan paused Zhang Zan paused for a little while as he stared into Xiao Hinchen's eyes. He lowered his voice and said, "All right, the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy has admitted defeat in the group battle. The Tang Sect is victorious in this round." Zhang Zan was a 9-ring titled Douluo, and his voice traveled to every corner of the arena so that every single person in the audience could hear. There was an immediate uproar. Back on the rostrum, Xu Tianran was also taken aback. Jing Hengchen thought that Xu Tianran was about to erupt in a fit of rage, but Xu Tianran's face broke into a smile. He knows when to bend and when to give or take. Not bad, Hallmaster Hengchen. Your grandson has improved a lot over the years, and he's not so headstrong and all about the fists anymore. Jing Hengchen lowered his head and forced a laugh. He's humiliated the Empire, Your Majesty. Please punish him. Xu Tianran smiled and said, "The round-robin stage has only just begun, and this round is far from over. The final result hasn't been revealed, so nobody can say whether he's disgraced us or not. Furthermore, I'm sure he will learn from this lesson, and he won't repeat the same mistakes in the following rounds. However, the Tang Sect is quite interesting, and they seem quite powerful. Imperial Tutor, what is the ability that Huo Yue used before this?" The Imperial Tutor was sitting on his other side, and he was clad from head to toe in black. He lowered his voice and said, "I believe it was a spiritual type attack. His martial soul is a pair of eyes, but that third eye should have come about from some mutation, and it's likely similar to the body sect's second martial soul awakening. This has allowed him to develop formidable spiritual power. That soul skill is incredibly powerful, and I'm afraid there's nobody at the same rank as him who can withstand that attack. It would require special soul tools or soul skills that are specifically designed to counter that soul skill if one wished to deal with it, and I believe the Hallmaster is quite adept at things like that. I believe that the Hallmaster's grandson opted to withdraw temporarily because he hasn't found a way to deal with that skill, and he wishes to conserve his team's fighting strength so that they can keep on going in the subsequent rounds. There'll always be another chance to take revenge." Jing Hengchen nodded. His expression seemed a lot better than before with the Imperial Tutor's affirmation. The rostrum was calm and cool, but that didn't mean the audience shared the same composure. Retreating without a battle was a cowardly act in their eyes, and the team that represented the Empire's dignity actually admitted defeat. Just like that, shouts and curses echoed throughout the arena, and some impulsive citizens would have rushed forward if there hadn't been soldiers standing guard all around. Xiao Hingchen threw a cold glance in Huo Yue's direction after admitting defeat, before jumping down from the competition stage along with his sister and his 2 remaining companions. Nothing else was said. Huo Yue's eyes closed into slits. The Sun Moon Empire will be a lot harder to deal with now. Shu Sanqi frowned and said, "I wanted to take this chance to cripple them for good. I didn't expect them to be so frightened." Jiang Nanan shook her head and said, "I don't think they're afraid. Look at Xiao Hinchen's eyes. Do you see a drop of fear? We would definitely be unable to emerge unscathed even if we met them head-on and beat them in the group battle. We've improved since 5 years ago, but I'm sure our opponents have improved as well. Don't forget that the 2 siblings were already sulkings 5 years ago." Xiao chimed in. "The Sun Moon Empire's reserve team can't be that weak. Even though we've won this round, we haven't done much to weaken their overall strength. Let's go." Huo Yue said. Everyone got off the competition stage, and their expressions immediately became a lot more relaxed than before. No matter what, they had still managed to defeat the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy in front of the Sun Moon Empire's crowd. They believed that the Tang Sect's name would resonate through every single household within the Sun Moon Empire. Of course, the other teams would also begin to place a lot more emphasis on them. "Huo Yue." A voice rang out behind them just as they were about to head back to the Brilliant Delight Hotel, and someone blocked their path. Huo Yue was momentarily stunned when he saw this person. "Do you need something, Kiwa?" Wang Qiwa, the Shrek Academy team leader, was the one who had stopped them. Wang Qiwa lowered her voice and said, "Shrek Academy doesn't need your help. We will defeat them all the same." Of course, she knew why the Tang Sect had decided to go all out in this round. Her voice sounded tough and cold, but her eyes were filled with unbending will. Huo Yue was still under his own spell, and thus his expression could only be cold as he said plainly, "We didn't mean to help you guys, and we were only helping ourselves. We've won the first round, and good luck to you guys." Wang Qiwa grunted coldly as she turned around and left. Nobody saw it, but she was biting down on her rosy lips when she turned back, and her eyes were a little blank and vacant. A thought suddenly surfaced in her mind. Did he do all that for me? The round-robin stage continued, but the Tang Sect and the Sun Moon Empire's team both decided to leave immediately. Everyone returned to their respective rooms to rest once they were back in the hotel. Huo Yue followed Wang Gongga back to their room. Huo Yue suddenly said, "Take off your clothes." Wang Gongga was momentarily stunned, but she quickly recovered and understood that he wanted to see her injuries. But she still pouted and said, "Yuao, you're not allowed to use that ice cold spell anymore. I don't like you this way." The corner of Huo Yue's mouth twitched. "Do you think I'll have the ability to direct the battle with you around if I don't use this ability? I didn't say it before this, but the truth is that we might not have won the group battle today. If I'm not wrong, Xiao Hinchen's abilities have broken through into yet another level. I studied his blood circulation and his soul power undulations closely before this, and I believe that my judgment is right." Wang Gongga was dumbfounded. "Are you saying that he's already? How is that possible? He's only 20 years old." Huo Yue answered, "Don't forget that the illustrious Virtue Hall is excessively wealthy, and they don't lack resources of any kind. It's not impossible to use exotic herbs and medicine to force out a soul sage at the age of 20. Furthermore, the effects that his abilities have against soul tools are incredibly difficult to deal with. I'm very worried about how Shrek Academy's team will fare against them. They will never give up their combat against the Sun Moon Empire without performance today, and with Shrek Academy's glory at stake, they will undoubtedly choose to fight until the end. But that's not something that I wish to see." Wang Dongga thought for a moment and said, "We've already done what we could. Don't think too much." Huo Yue tilted his head and said, "It will be very difficult for Shrek Academy to defeat the Sun Moon Empire's team with Xiao Hincchen and Meng Hincchen around. Hey, why haven't you taken off your clothes yet?" Wang Dongga blushed. You're staring at me like that. How am I supposed to take them off?" Huo Yue's eyes were as cold as ever. Wang Dongga felt as if she were being scrutinized and interrogated by that pair of eyes, and it didn't feel good at all. Huo Yue forced a laugh and said, "I'll turn around. Then, lie down on the bed after you've taken off your clothes, and I'll help you inspect your body." The corner of Wang Dongga's mouth twitched. "Your words sound very strange. You're not allowed to touch places you're not supposed to. Ahem, am I that kind of person?" Huo Yue answered calmly. Wang Dongga grunted and retorted, "Yes, you are." It took 5 minutes, as Wang Dongga took her time and reluctantly removed her clothes before she laid face down on the bed, and Huo Yue began to inspect the injuries on her back. The goddess of light's possession's defensive effects were extremely formidable. Even though the decomposition rays didn't have their own element, the possession withstood the brunt of the attack, and Wang Dongga merely suffered surface abrasions and scratches. She also wielded the powerful element of light, and this continuously nourished her body and helped her recover. Huo Yue still wasn't assured despite all that. He discreetly poked a hole in his own finger as he inspected her wounds, and he squeezed some blood onto her wounds. The life bulb that he had ingested contained immense life energy, and even though there was little of it left because he had been continuously assimilating it, he still had ample life energy. Wang Dongga's recovery naturally accelerated because of his blood. Yuao, the Radiant City Elite Soul Engineering competition is happening tomorrow night, right? Lucky for us, it's on a different day from our own tournament. Wang Dongga was a little panicky and anxious. Even though her relationship with Huo Yue had already been settled, this was the first time that she had revealed her naked body before him. Huo Yue was just looking at her back, but she was still a virgin young girl, and it was incredibly embarrassing. She tried her best to talk about other things so that she could distract herself. Huo Yue's eyes were already slack at this point. He felt an intense heartache seeing the 3 wounds on Wang Dongga's back, but even so, her silky and smooth skin, the tender curves of her body, her thin and slender waist, and her perky buttocks were so fatally alluring and beautiful. He felt as if her body was inviting him to make a mistake. No spell could enable Huo Yue to keep his cool at a time like this. He took deep and forceful breaths again and again so that he could maintain his composure. It took a lot of effort before his quivering fingers managed to smudge some of his blood onto all 3 of Wang Dongga's wounds. "What are you doing, Yuao? Why do my wounds feel so itchy?" Wang Dongga suddenly shifted her body subtly. Huo Yue felt his entire body freeze up. Right when Wang Dongga was shifting her position, 2 semicircles that were squeezed out from underneath her chest entered his field of view. The proportion is just so good. Even though she can't compare to Xiao, she isn't that far off. "Why aren't you talking, Yuao?" Wang Donga turned around to look at him, and she coincidentally met his eyes that were fixated upon a certain somewhere. She exclaimed in shock and immediately pulled up the blanket to cover her body, and tossed a pillow at him with her other hand. What are you looking at, you idiot? Who are you? Wasn't prepared at all, and the pillow almost knocked him dizzy. However, he still maintained his cool because of the spell, and he answered calmly, I'm staring at the most beautiful things in the world. Wang Donga poked her head out from underneath the blanket and said angrily, were they nice to look at? Who are you? Sounded very serious as he replied, yes, they were very nice. Wang Donga grunted indignantly and said, you're sleeping on the floor today as punishment. Who are you? Body suddenly trembled, and his face became ghastly pale as his head tilted back diagonally on his wheelchair. I've used too much spiritual power. I feel so weak. He closed his eyes as he spoke. Wang Donga was truly startled by his behavior, and she wrapped the blanket around herself as she sat up. However, she quickly realized that a certain shameless fellow had his eyes closed, but his eyelashes were still quivering faintly. You feel weak? Huh. Then you can sit on your wheelchair and feel weak all you want. I'm going to take a nap, and you can forget about going for lunch after this. Just stay there and feel exhausted. Wang Donga muttered coldly, and she rapidly put on her clothes with the blanket covering her body before she lay down comfortably on the bed. Who are you? Opened his eyes exasperatedly. I don't want to be like this either, and this is all because of that spell. Yes, it's all because of that. The spell will always make me deal with things in the way that's most beneficial for me. Look like I can't use this spell anymore. You can't blame me, Donga. You can't punish me like that. Wang Donga still sounded a little upset. You're still under that spell, so I will not believe a single word you say. Furthermore, dealing with things is one thing, and your eyes looking at things you're not supposed to is another. If I don't punish you in some way. Humph. Who are you? Droned on and said, you've changed, Donga. You've always been so gentle and tender in recent days. Why are you like this today? I was just taking a look. It's not a big deal. Wang Donga sat up and stared at Who are you seriously. Tell me honestly, do you like how I am like now, or do you like how gentle and tender I was? Who are you was taken aback. I don't know. Both seem pretty good. When you're warm, I feel like I'm about to melt. However, I feel a little more familiar with the way you are now. What's wrong, Donga? Is there something on your mind? If there is, you should tell me. You should never bottle things up in your heart. Have I made you angry somehow? Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.